Coming up on this episode.
Talk about aha moments. I feel like the light
those
bulb came on like 150 times.
Yep.
Like stuff I'd never even thought of, considered.
Yes. Yeah, it's just like, thank you.
Yeah.
I've got some, it's just so freeing, if you will.
Yeah.
It was a very...
It feels like it puts you back in control.
Yeah. Yeah, and with that, I noticed the absence of not getting upset about stuff. It's like, I'm good to go right now.
Yeah.
Why, and
Isn't it crazy?
this is a nice feeling. Yeah, it is crazy. It's like, there's a life here.
Low pass, show of force confirmed to add to the enemy.
Outside the Wire.
Welcome to episode 11, Outside the Wire podcast. Today we got two new guests. We have Brad, combat veteran Marine, and Mike, mental health worker with the Uniform Service Program at the Retreat in Brattleboro, Vermont. And we're going to talk a little bit about the program and see both sides of it. See the institution side and how they give care, and then also someone who went to the retreat and what it was like from their perspective. So I'll let Mike here introduce himself, and you can tell us a little bit about the Uniform Service Program and what your role is.
Sure, thanks. So my name's Mike. I'm from the Brattleboro Retreat Uniform Service Program. We are an outpatient program for veterans and first responders. So that includes, obviously, vets, whether combat veterans or otherwise, police officers, firefighters, EMS people, corrections officers. And basically we treat PTSD and everything else that usually goes along with that: anxiety, depression, substance abuse, that sort of thing. We do this with a mindfulness modality, so it's a skills-based program, and I'm sure we can talk more about this, but basically what that means is we don't get real heavy-duty into telling war stories, and we don't make anyone go into depth in remembering some of the more traumatic things that happened to them. We really focus on skills, and these are skills that would be very beneficial even before you enter a career in the military or fire service, police, that sort of thing. So.
Okay, and then Brad, you
Yes.
just finished or you just started going?
The retreat?
Yeah.
I just finished about 2 weeks ago.
Okay, and how long was the actual duration?
For me, it was 3 weeks, but it's not a set time.
Okay.
I think you can go as much as 6 weeks. Somewhere.
It could be. It's a discussion between you and us the whole time you're there. 3 weeks is probably a good average.
Okay. How many veterans do you currently have going through the program?
So our maximum number is 12 people at any given time.
Okay.
I have, off the top of my head, probably right now we got 3 or 4 veterans. I think 2 of them are just straight up veterans, and then 1 or 2 other ones are veterans who are now cops.
Okay. And then, so when I did the HomeBased program, they actually had us bill it right there. Is that, you guys offer billeting, or is it you just come?
Yeah, we have 2 different lodging options. One is sort of a dorm situation that's right on the campus. It's a 2-minute walk across the road to the program. It's like $26 a night, something like that, and it's okay. It's not awesome. There's no hot tub or anything like that, but it's okay.
Okay.
Then the other lodging option, kind of near where Brattleboro Country Club is, we have like what is a full-on Vermonty bed and breakfast that people can stay at, and that's something like $100 a night for people that have the resources for that.
Okay. Now the program itself, is that free to veterans?
We bill all types of different insurance.
Okay.
We do work with the VA, but most, probably have a lot of cops and firefighters and EMS people. It's probably most of the program, and they all have good insurance because those are good jobs. So
Right.
it's private insurance and the VA.
Okay. All right. And so you, Brad, are currently working in the fire department.
Yes.
And how long have you been? So you were in the Marine Corps first. So tell us a little bit about the Marine Corps, and then you can kind of transition into your current job as a firefighter.
Sure. So I was in the Marines from about the end of 2004 to 2010. I deployed to Fallujah, Iraq in 2006 and Al-Assad in 2009. Definitely a difference with time and place. As I found out my second deployment, it was completely different country, it felt like.
Yeah.
So...
and what way would you say?
Oh, the escalation of force being the big one. In fact, I started feeling symptoms that deployment in convoys, when they started to introduce cars could come in the convoys, I couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
I couldn't handle it. And all the junior guys or their first deployment, it was fine. It was just like driving down the highway back in the States for them, and it blew my mind.
Yeah, because I remember when I was in Iraq in 2004, and they had the posture was, we escalated our posture, and our goal was to be a hard target.
Yeah.
So like what you were talking about, there was never civilian vehicles allowed in between our convoy. We were pushing hard, fast, getting in and out of situations as fast as we could, guns up into the ready.
Yeah.
Everyone was condition 1.
Yeah.
And we'd fire warning shots all the time.
Flashbangs.
I had a 12-gauge shotgun that I got in addition to my 9mm, my M4, and my Mark 19.
Yeah.
And we went to an army base, and I found they had a cache of non-lethal rounds.
Yeah.
So I got a bunch of rubber bullets for my 12-gauge. And so I was shooting windshields out left and right, like get out of our way.
Yeah.
And when you're the aggressor and that's your posture, you feel like the predator, not the prey.
Yeah.
And so your first deployment was more like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was very
more aggressive on the hunt.
Yeah, and also being in Fallujah, there at that time the main threat was IEDs.
Yeah.
I don't know what percentage versus IEDs for firefights, but it was well over 90%, I'd say, for IEDs.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, when I left Fallujah near the end of 2006, my brother was coming in. He was in the Army, and he was going to Ramadi. So I thought what I experienced in Fallujah was throughout the entire country. And then talking with him at his midway deployment leave, he was engaging primarily in firefights, with IEDs being the secondary attack. So I didn't know how different it was until talking with him.
Yeah.
But, I felt bad for him. Just that butter bar going in, and I'm leaving. I'm like, man, I got nothing for you.
Yeah.
I got nothing for you, buddy. Good luck.
So you said your second deployment was more of a defensive posture than an aggressor?
Yeah, I think we're starting to reintroduce the country back to the civilians.
Did you guys have ING rolling with you, the Iraqi National Guard or the Iraqi Army?
I think it was more. I only did a few missions as far as leaving the wire. I think we did have some of them with us, but it was more the civilians. They let them drive back in our convoys, and they were proud of it, it seemed, and it was very hard to handle. We went from Al-Assad to TQ to help break down the base. We were getting ready to pull out.
Okay.
As far as larger numbers.
So you were a part of the major exfil.
Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't need, our orders didn't. They said, don't even unpack your bags, you guys. You're probably leaving soon.
Okay.
So we never even knew when we were leaving. So, but that dragged on for a few
That's
months.
got to be great for your mental health.
No, yeah, it was not. I think that deployment was only 4 months, and it felt like 4 years, because every day was.
You have no idea when the end date is.
Right.
You can push through. It's amazing when you get into like the mental ability of humans.
Yeah.
And you can deal with some of the most unbelievably hard things when you know when it ends. Like you think about like a really hard workout I heard you do CrossFit.
Yeah.
You know that like I got to do burpees, but I have to do them for 2 minutes straight. Well, that sucks. But you know that you're watching the time and like I can make it to 2 minutes and then I'm done and you leave. But when you're in a combat deployment and you're in a defensive posture and you have all these outside of your control factors adding to your stress, I mean, it wears you out. It fatigues you. And then not knowing when it's going to end, I mean, that takes a toll on anybody. Yeah. And especially, you described the junior Marines who that was all they knew during that deployment. Mm-hmm. You had a completely different deployment to compare that to. So you can see like daily, you have this in the back of your head. This is not the way it's supposed to be. Right. This is not what we're supposed to be doing. And I know from my experience when I was in the deployment changed throughout, and there were so many instances where like the rules would change, and you're like, wait, yesterday I could do this, now today I can't, and it messes with you, and you're like, it's a lot to handle, it's a lot to deal with mentally,
Yeah.
and especially when you're not making your own decisions, you have someone else making your decisions for you, and it is life or death for you.
Yeah.
That's a big load to carry while you're serving.
Yeah.
So you got out. You're currently out.
Yeah.
And then how? So you're currently a firefighter and EMT.
Yeah, firefighter, paramedic.
Okay. And so how long have you been doing that?
About 7 years total.
Okay. So as a firefighter, you're seeing a lot of emotionally taxing and physically, visibly taxing stuff
Yeah,
as well.
I mean, it's got its as far as the job going from the Marines to the fire service, it has its pros and cons, and it's you get that back, that time sensitive task, got to complete the mission feeling, the camaraderie with the guys. I mean, I love all that, but you got to remember Mike's here talking about the uniform services program, so it clearly does carry its share of baggage with it.
Right.
It's kind of like on, I think, episode 1 you mentioned you've got that baggage that we've taken from the Marines, but it also has its tools that go with it.
Right. Yep.
You reapply a lot of those tools to the job, and it's very a sense of purpose.
Right. So
know?
you work, and this is how we met. You work with my wife's cousin, who's
Yeah.
also a firefighter in your, is it called an engine or a department or?
I'd say department.
Okay.
Yeah, we ride a
And
bunch of
so
different
I actually
trucks.
had dinner with you. I call him Stevie. You call him Dewey.
Dewey, yeah.
To me, Stevie's still a little kid. He's probably like
No, he's still a little kid to us. Too.
Okay.
No, he's growing up a bit.
No, he's a good.
I'll give him that.
He's such a good dude.
Yeah.
He's for his age. I'm blown away at how mature he is and how much of his shit he has together.
Yeah. I wouldn't chalk him up too much, but he's a good dude.
Yeah. Well, I'm comparing him at his age to what I was at his age.
Yeah.
And he's got his head on straighter than I did, for sure. But he was talking about he respects you and appreciates it. And he was the one that suggested you come on this podcast.
Yeah.
And he talked about how one of the things that he likes about you is going out with you on a call, having you there with him, is you always have a backup plan.
Yeah.
And he said the only time he's ever seen you off your game is when you didn't have a backup plan. He said it's super rare, but he likes the fact that when shit hits the fan and things go sideways, people look to you because they're like, oh, well,
Yeah.
Brad's got a backup plan already. We
Yeah.
don't have to think about it, but you've got it.
Yeah, I run a plan A, B, and C. You know, the plan we're doing, the plan that might happen, and the plan ready to go. If it
Right.
needs-
Once you get
things
punched
go-
in the mouth, what
Yeah.
you're actually going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you talked about the tools in your bag. That is what I'm talking about, is you earned that skill
Yeah.
through the fire of combat. And now you're using that skill in your day-to-day life, and it makes you stronger for it. Yes, that tool was hard earned and it came with a cost. But when you look at it as something that was earned, I think it's just the right mentality to have when you're looking at the things that come from combat. Because I don't think that you can go down a healthy path and become resentful of your combat time.
Right.
And and I think the other danger is, and I was just starting to kind of learn this a little bit too, is the danger of being nostalgic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys talk about this at all in the retreat, or the uniform service program, but when you romanticize or think back on how good it was, how dangerous that can be if you get into a depressed state and wish you could go back to the good old days, and how important it is to remain present and focused and grounded in where you are.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what led you to look to join, or first, how did you find out about the uniform service program, and then what made you decide that you should?
Yeah. Well, I feel very fortunate because they came to our firehouse to talk to us for a day, and it was always dealing with the challenges of life after deployments, and you know, we've all got our own stories. You have a whole episode on road rage, those type of things, and it got extremely more challenging, you know, after kids and trying to be a good dad and a good husband and fighting that. So I always had those challenges. These guys came to the firehouse and did their talk, and I thought, okay, this is, you know, the run of the mill. I'm here because we're getting paid to hear these guys talk, and they started getting into what.
And that was Mike that came?
Mike and Dave and Jason.
Okay.
They're big heavy hitters over there, and they start talking. I'm like, these guys are speaking our language, and then they start talking how you don't just divulge all of your things that are bothering you. We're going to give you tools to work with what you got.
Yeah.
And I was like, this seems very beneficial.
Yeah.
I just start taking notes, and they were up talking for about 3 hours. Went home to my wife, and she could tell I was pretty excited talking about it. And then about a month or two went by, and she's like, I know you said you wanted to go, and I think you should.
Yeah.
And then there was my sign. I'm like, it can, I'll do that. So I got lucky because I felt like I was circling the drain. I didn't really hit rock bottom.
Right.
Like a lot of other people do before they get to that point. So I feel like I got very lucky that way that they just ended up in the firehouse, and it was very beneficial for me.
Right, yeah, and I talked about that a little bit. Episode 9, when the right time is to seek help. And unfortunately, I think a lot of us wait too long.
Yep, I would have waited or have not. I mean, I have been going to the vet center, and it was okay, but it wasn't giving me these aha moments where I was like, wow, this is.
Yeah, I looked at the vet center, the way the vet center was set up. I looked at the vet center as more like a kind of like they were giving me a safe place to go dump all of my stuff out on the floor and then sit there. I used the metaphor of like my head was a box of Legos and it wasn't assembled properly and it was just swirling around in there. And so I would go to the vet center and just dump it all on the floor, and then they would sit there and help me try to put it back together. But it's a very long process, and it's a very individualized process, and it spends a lot of time immersing back into the point of the trauma, which for me felt like I would take a lot of steps backwards. And when I would just go into the vet center and be like, can you just tell me what to do? Right. Tell me what steps I need to take to get better. And I don't want to spend all my time going back, because I felt like in that moment, a lot of the times I would feel like I'm fine. I don't feel like I have PTSD. But then I would get, these just explosive anger fights with my wife, or I would get super irritated with coworkers, and I could tell there was definitely something was different. I wasn't the same person I was when I was younger. So obviously something was different, but I couldn't connect the dots and say for sure that it was combat related. It was too hard to understand what it was. And so I just spent all this time like confused, I feel like.
Yeah. And
when they sent me to the HomeBased program, it sounds very similar to what the retreat was. And it was a more focus on where you want to go and give you the tools to get there versus let's try to go back into your past and fix how, what happened. Because you can't.
Right.
And you can't go back there and you can't change it. It happened.
And then they would just change out. The therapist would leave, a new one would come in, you start all over.
Yeah, the turnover rate at the VA is definitely, I try to be empathetic to the fact that they're humans too, and I'm sure that working for the VA.
Yeah, they're doing what they can with what they know, I felt like, but it just wasn't working for me. But I felt like, well, I'm seeing therapy, so I'm doing what I got to do.
So how long have you been going to the vet center?
About 4 years consistently. I kind of went in and out, and every time I was like, no, not for me. They don't, I would just leave. And
now, when the counselors that you saw at the vet center, were they combat veterans?
No.
And did you find it was hard for you to relate to them and open up and kind of trust them to share stuff?
I don't know how to. I guess I don't know how to answer that because they weren't. I didn't see any that were combat veterans, but I could definitely tell talking to them. You have no idea what I'm talking about,
right? Yeah.
And you are not going to give me any answers right now,
or
any. I definitely had that feeling of this is worthless.
For me, I felt the exact same way, and it felt like every time I go there, I felt like there was a floodgate behind me. All this crap that I just wanted to get off my chest. but I was holding it back because I didn't feel safe there to do it.
Right.
Because the person that I was talking to was not a combat veteran, hadn't experienced what I experienced, and was asking me to go back there and tell them this story. And I'm like, I'm willing to do that if there's a reason why. And you haven't given me a reason why yet. Not one that I can see how the outcome is going to be and why this would be worth doing. And so when I went to the HomeBased program and they didn't dig into that, they just got right. It was like we hit the ground running. Here's where we need to go. Here's how you get there. And I'm like, oh, this is refreshing. This is like,
Right. That's
this to
that's
me,
the feeling I felt when these guys came to talk
yeah,
to
it
us.
felt more like training. And when
Yeah.
you're in the military, you're in the Marine Corps, you're a combat veteran, training is what you're used to.
Yeah.
You set an objective, you break it down into bite-sized pieces, and
Yeah.
you work through each step of that progress to get to hone skills to be able to be proficient in a certain thing.
Yeah.
And what they were talking to me is your goal is to be proficient in handling your emotions, into how to live a life that you enjoy and not be depressed or anxious and I was like, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Sign me
Yeah.
up. And you willing to put, I was willing to put so much more effort into that because I could see progress. And that sounds like what you said. Dewey said that you told him that you had gotten more out of a couple weeks at the Uniform Service Program than 4 years at the Vet Center.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that's amazing to
Yeah.
me. You take 2 weeks of training versus 4 years of counseling sessions, and the impact is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, I teach you how to get in touch with your emotions, your body's feelings, and how to use that. I remember a thing that Jason said that really stuck with me is you need to enter an intelligent relationship with your experiences.
Like the emotional intelligence of a man is already, we're kind of like apes.
Yeah.
And then you add being in the Marine Corps where emotional intelligence is basically squashed and emotions are considered weakness. And so even getting into the idea of talking about your emotions is frowned upon. And then now you get into a combat situation where you have experienced some extreme emotions and feelings. You have no tools on how to deal with it. And when you start feeling those feelings, the first thing your brain thinks of is these feelings are weakness. I need to hide them. I need to bury them. I need to pretend they don't exist. And so we suffer in silence and don't reach out for help because if we think that asking for help means we're admitting weakness. And that is this podcast. If my number one message could be, I want to change that mindset with as many people as I can and change it to being emotionally intelligent is a skill that the better you are at it, the better your overall life is. The better you can be as a skilled worker, working with civilians or other veterans, the better husband you can be, the better father you can be, and the more you can look in the mirror at yourself and be proud of who you are and be comfortable with who you are.
Yeah.
You have to be emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
That is very well said. And that's the idea that we try to communicate.
Yeah.
It's not a sign of weakness. It's like a sign that there could be a better, more productive way to live my life, and maybe there are some skills I can learn so I can get back to living the way I want to live.
Yeah.
That's what this is. It's not a commentary on somebody's weakness or their strength or any of that. It's like, do you want to live the way you want to live?
Right.
Or do you want to be a prisoner of thoughts, memories, nightmares, dreams, reactions that you have to things?
So tell me really quick, let's say I had already gone through the HomeBased program and I was one of the firefighters at Brad's department here,
Yeah.
and I was interested at coming and checking the Uniform Service Program out. What would be day one for me? What would it look like?
All right, so everyone that comes through the program goes through the general admissions of the hospital. And that's interesting because I think that, and I'm not speaking negatively about our admissions department, but it is a hospital admissions department. And so I think when guys first get to us, and gals, when they first get to us, they may have some fear that, oh, this is going to be like it's going to be like an inpatient stay or something like that. So you go through that, you answer some questions, you fill out some paperwork. They call us, either me or Dave walks across the street and comes and picks you up. And immediately we start breaking your balls and trying to like let you know that this isn't what you think it's going to be. It's going to be like a lot more laid back and personable. So we walk you across the street. I give you a little tour of the program. It's small because our maximum is 12 people at a time.
So you take an extra step effort-wise to make the person feel comfortable.
Absolutely.
Make it feel personal. It doesn't feel clinical.
Absolutely.
You're not just a patient. You're not just a number. You're
Absolutely.
a human that's going to interact with other humans, and you want to feel comfortable. That's awesome.
That is the most important thing for me, is to communicate to my guys and gals that like this isn't what you're worried it's going to be.
Yeah.
And it looks like that when you first get there, because the retreat is a large psychiatric hospital, and we have an admissions department with nurses and docs with stethoscopes and stuff, and so
Yeah.
they're like, oh man, I don't know what this is. And then by the time you get across the street and you realize it's like me and Dave and Jason and Jen, and so there's only 6 people that work there, and we're all real people. So we crack some jokes and we make you fill out some paperwork, and then you meet with one of our clinicians like Jason or Jen, and they do a little talk, and then you get right into groups, and our groups are all skills based.
Are most of the sessions group sessions, or they're individual?
Yeah, the program is group sessions.
Okay.
In addition to that, everybody meets with their clinician, which is, therapist would be another term for that. Although therapist has a lot of connotations for a lot of people,
Right,
so
yeah.
clinician is a better term. It's a group-based program, but you meet individually with a clinician once a week for an hour. So you get kind of the best of both worlds.
Yep.
And even though it's once a week individual with a clinician, like it's just the 6 of us in this program. So all day, any day, if you want to talk to your clinician, you can absolutely do that. You can run
Okay.
something by them at any time. But you'll have an official sit down once a week.
So there's 6 team members.
Yeah.
And you said up to 12 they're all veterans or uniform?
They're all uniformed, have some uniform service,
Okay.
either active or background. Many of them are veterans.
Now, do you have like when I went through, it was a cohort, so I had a start date and an end date, or do you guys kind of do like a revolving where you kind of show up whenever, or do you have classes, like a syllabus kind of thing, or?
So we sort of have a syllabus. It's like 3 weeks of content, but people jump in whenever they get there.
Okay.
And then it's all skills based. It all connects. So you jump in whenever you get there, and then it all wraps around, and so you might get the foundations of mindfulness first, if that's when you got there, or you might get the stress and the trauma response, which is on one of the episodes, maybe the road rage episode. You did a pretty good job of talking about like the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system.
Which those two I always get backwards. I had
Sympathetic
to write
is-
it. I had to write it down and have it hidden so I would say the right one.
Yeah, the way that I try to remember that is sympathetic is like, oh, it feels bad for you. It wants
Yeah.
you to protect yourself, so it jacks up your heart rate. and
Okay, yeah,
all
that's
this
good.
stuff.
Yeah.
So fight or flight is the sympathetic.
Right.
And that'll be really embarrassing if I have that backwards.
Yeah.
But leave it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we got like a week of content about that sort of thing. And Jason, he wouldn't want me to say this, but I don't care. He's basically our head clinician. He's kind of the driving force between what we do. It's very collaborative with all of us staff, but Jason's kind of really structured the program. So he calls that week talking about the brain and the HPA axis and the amygdala and the sympathetic nervous system. He calls that like the "you are not going insane" week.
Okay.
So it's like the stuff that you're going through, there's actual reasons for it.
Right.
It's like you're not, can you use language on this
Yeah,
podcast?
yeah.
Okay. It's like you're not just an asshole.
Yeah.
That's my word. That's not Jason.
Yeah.
But it's like there's actually things going on.
Right. And
So
I like that too, because I've said this a couple times on different episodes where when you can see that it's chemistry, that your brain is producing chemicals, your body's producing chemicals, adrenaline, cortisol, dopamine, all these different things that are going on in your body, and they naturally happen and they affect how you feel and how you think and how you react. And then when you build a set of habits that affect your subconscious and how you can react versus respond. All this thing, it's trained or untrained responses, and you're not broken. You're doing what your body is supposed to do.
Yeah.
And it takes like all that pressure off.
Yeah, it's how to process all that.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, well, hold on a second. If this is like a process, then I can alter the process. If I don't like the outcome of this process that I've established, then I just decide what outcome I do want, and then enter all of the habits or things that need to happen for me to get the outcome that I do want.
Yeah, it's that education and information that they give you. It's like, oh, yes, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. Not because of what I've been through, but what I've been struggling lately. It's like I get it now.
Yeah.
You know, and that's...
I don't know how it was for you, but for me, when I went to the HomeBased program, you talk about aha moments. I feel like the light bulb came on like 150 times.
Yep.
Like stuff I'd never even thought of, considered.
Yes. Yeah. It's just like, thank you.
Yeah.
I've got some, it's just so freeing, if you will.
Yeah.
It was a very...
It feels like it puts you back in control.
Yeah. Yeah, and with that, I noticed the absence of not getting upset about stuff. It's like, I'm good to go right now.
Yeah.
Why, and
Isn't this crazy?
this is a
like,
nice feeling. Yeah, it is crazy. It's like, there's a life here, and
Yeah.
that's one thing I learned by being there. I remember I told myself I was I'm doing this for my wife and my kids. And when I got there, I started learning things. I'm like, to do this for them, I got to do this for myself. I got to be me.
Yeah.
And you learn about yourself, and now I can fully be present. I can't just force myself to go to events I don't want to go to. I can actually be enjoying it with my kids, with whatever I do with them.
Yeah.
That was a big thing.
That was a big one for me, is when I finally decided to go do something for real, and was so thankful that the HomeBased program existed. And it's awesome that it sounds like your program is so much similar, and basically has this. It might basically, I mean, you probably have different acronyms for things, but it's basically the same content. But I was going there because I was trying to get relief from my symptoms, and I just wanted to stop feeling depressed, anxious, and overwhelmed all the time, and angry. And they were like, "Oh yeah, like that's like the side effects. Mm-hmm. That's not your goal. Mm-hmm. Your goal is to be happy, content, mm-hmm. live a meaningful, purpose-filled life, and actually enjoy and love life." And I was like, "Whoa, I hadn't even considered that was an option."
Yeah.
I thought I was just going to be a miserable human being for the rest of my life, and maybe somebody can teach me how to not be so miserable.
Yeah, that's what I thought, too.
Yeah.
It just, and interesting going through that. Like you said, they walk you in, but other people are at different stages. You got a guy that might be leaving that day or check in the next day. So you see, as you get further in, you see guys, it's like, wow, like you start to get this different perspective, and it's like, that was me a week or two ago, and you talk to them, and it's going to be good, man.
Yeah, and it's cool too. I had you, Chad, Tien, Chris, so far all Marines on the podcast, and we're all at different stages.
Yeah.
But I can see that for all of us, it wasn't like we learned these skills, finished the class, now we're good to go. It's like it became a new, not addiction, but like something you want more. Yeah. Once you start dabbling in these kinds of ideas of like, oh, I can be more mindful, I can be more present, I can be more skilled in my emotions and be more emotionally intelligent. It's like you want more and more and more. And like the more I learn, the more I want to talk about it, the more I want to share, the more I want other people to get excited about it. And it becomes like a driving factor in your life. Yeah. And it's, you want to tell people about it. You see someone struggling, you're not like, you don't feel bad for them. You can see from their perspective what they're actually upset about. And when you can see someone in pain and you can see why, because you've lived it and you've experienced it and you've done it and you're on the other side, and now you feel like you have tools to help other people, it becomes, I think that this kind of thing, it seems like it's really new and fresh right now, but I think that we're going to see an exponential growth of it in the combat veteran community and law enforcement community, because once you start helping people and they start learning and they start feeling so much better, I think that compassion spreads to their friends, their peers. I mean, pretty much everybody that's been on this podcast so far, haven't been like close buddies of mine. Yeah. They've been people I met within the last 6 months. And here I am sharing like really deep things with them and feel like really connected with them. And it's because of what we're talking about. And it's just crazy to me how fast it spreads and grows. And I'm really excited that it seems to me like there's going to be a lot of people who need it that can get the help. And we talk about like the epidemic of how many veterans are committing suicide, and giving them a 1-800 hotline number to call is not going to stop that. Doing 22 push-ups a day and putting it on your Instagram is not going to stop that. Yeah. What's going to stop it is real information to give these guys meaning and purpose and happiness again in their lives. That's what's going to stop them from ending it. That's right. Because you don't just get to that point where you're going to end your life, right, and then someone on the phone tells you something magical. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. Yeah. And the only way you can get through all that work is by learning new skills. And learning new skills takes time. You have to commit to it. You have to do it, and it's hard. I don't know if...
Oh, yeah, there's homework, if you will, but once you learn that, you got to commit to that lifestyle. It's easy to do because it just opens up so much more joy in your life. Yeah. So it's not hard. It's like, this is what I got to do. It's not bad at all.
So if there's one thing that you think you got out of that you would want to share or talk about, what would be the one thing that you got out of going to the program?
It's a pretty heavy question, as far as a 3-week experience that I had. But the main thing I got out of it is recognizing when I'm starting to, get angry about something that I can't fight through it. You're just going to get, more angry. And it's not always showing that anger. I'm always good about hiding it. That was kind of my biggest problem. So once the wrong thing set me off, I'd yell at the kids the wrong way. I'm talking, I feel terrible about it. It was above just, a dad being upset with his kid. It's like, they did not deserve that. My wife's going to intervene. I got to go in the other room. Yeah. I get pretty upset about how I reacted. Now my kids are upset. I can recognize before that stuff's going to happen, and tell my wife. But she's always been good about she's been the balance of our family even before everything. It's like she understands things better than I do. So.
Why?
What's that?
She's a woman and she's emotionally intelligent.
Yes. Yeah, she gets it. I mean, I was already had my date to leave for their program, and we went to this hockey game that I wasn't crazy about going to just because I didn't want to deal with that level of people. And we went to the game because the brother-in-law got the tickets down by the front row, and this wasn't going to work for me. But I wanted to not be there for I wanted to be there for the kids, And I just it felt like being outside the wire, if you will. It felt like that dream you have that pretty much most people have, where you don't have your flak, you don't have your rifle, you are so vulnerable right now. I mean, it was just it was so challenging, and I'd go have a beer and go back and take a big breath and walk down, and all these. It was just the least tactical, secure position I could be in. If I'm going to go to a game, I'm going to get tickets where my back's against the wall. So I'm trying to do what I can, and I just remember they started banging for the to support the team, started stomping the bleachers, and I just dropped my head and was trying to hold in my tears. And my wife's like, "That's it, we're out of here, let's go." And she had to explain to the people that bought the tickets, my brother-in-law and his girlfriend, and then we had to leave. But my kids want to know why we're leaving, and it's just like, no, this isn't where your father needs to be right now. And I feel like I could, after being in the program, better handle that situation. I would not force myself in that situation. I would not let them see me like that. I would, like I said, get tickets in a better location. Right. But it's all that recognizing those emotions. Like, I'm going to learn my body's a radar, and I need to address it.
Yeah.
It's trying to tell me something, and now I have the tools to say this is why you're acting. You feel that way.
Right. And I what I love about these tools is that situation you described is very common. I've been in similar situations. I know plenty of other combat veterans that are in that same, if not worse. And that's not what life's meant to be. You didn't go serve your country, give up so much of your time and effort and sacrifice so much so that when you came home you couldn't enjoy life.
And I thought that was
you
my
fought
life
for that
though.
ability to be living in a country where we can go to sports games and enjoy that freely, and that's what the whole American way of life is and should be. So our combat veterans shouldn't miss out on what they fought for. And these tools that we're talking about are like, we shouldn't feel like we're stuck in a spot where we couldn't ever do that again. Like, we have to always sit with our back to the wall.
Right.
There are plenty of tools that you can learn, and you're like, there should be no reason why you can't sit in the best seat in the house,
Right, and
enjoy
actually
the
enjoy
shit
the
out of
game.
that game.
Yeah, and that was the last thing I was thinking at that time. But yeah, to bring it back to your question, the one thing I got out of that is the program is I experienced way more joy
Yeah.
in life, and I thought that was before that. That's the way my life was. It's gonna it was just kind of miserable at times.
Yeah,
way
it's
too
kinda
much,
like
and that was
through.
it, man. I'm going to get help. At the vet center, I'm doing what I can. This is life now. You just got to bowl through it, and I didn't know that I could actually enjoy it to the way I do
Well,
now.
that's super
So
powerful
that's what I
stuff.
took
That's
out of it.
awesome.
That reminds me of, you had an episode about when should you get help.
Yeah.
One thing that's sometimes for me is tough to see is I'll get older guys in the program, people that have been, had Vietnam vets still, or even just older guys that are getting near retirement age for cops and stuff, and they'll see the younger guys come in looking a little rough, and then a week later they're looking a little better, and then these older guys themselves start to feel better, and then they end up saying like, man, I wish I would have done this when I was 32 years old.
They had that. They even told me that on the side. Like, you're lucky you've got your kids young enough. You can enjoy your life with them. And I felt for them. I was like, wow.
Yeah. And it's because people don't believe. You probably didn't believe that you could get any better. You, as you just said, like, this is the way it is now. I'll go to the vet center. I'll go, go through the motions at dinner with the wife or whatever. People don't believe that it can get better. So once they actually see it in themselves and in their peers, that's like a really powerful thing.
Yeah.
And like, I'm very happy that we could also help older guys and gals. But that's kind of tough sometimes to see a guy that's 65 years old, and when he has that aha moment that like, oh, I could have done this 30 years ago and enjoyed the last 30 years. So I mean, the best time to start is now, but the earlier the better, because you got to believe that it does get better. And I see it every day.
So we're starting a website called the Enlisted Club, and it's going to be a blog, and it's going to have all of these podcasts available on it. It's going to have funny stuff. I do a lot of memes for our Leatherneck for Life Instagram page, so we'll have funny stuff. We had just signed up a Marine young corporal who's an artist. He's going to write little or draw little comics for us. That'll be fun. And then we also have a resources page, and I've already put your program up on the resources page, and I'll send you the link so that you can fill in more information and more contact information. So it's a really robust resource page. The HomeBased program where I went through will be on that resource page. But for right now, if someone wanted more information about your program, can you tell us the best way to find you guys and how to get in touch? And let us know where you're at.
Sure. So BrattleboroRetreat.com. There's a link on that website with the USP page. USP is Uniform Service Program. You can just call 1-800-RETREAT. Actually, the best thing to do in all reality, call 1-800-RETREAT.
Okay.
Say that you're a uniformed service person that wants to know more about the program and you want to talk to someone from the program.
Okay.
And they'll bounce it over to me or Dave, who will answer the phone. And then that's what I like to do. I I get these calls and I
Okay.
actually talk to the guy on the phone and
Okay.
give him some of this. So that's probably the best way to do it.
So call 1-800-RETREAT and ask for either Mike or Dave
Yeah, at USP.
at
Uniform
USB.
Service
Okay,
Program.
perfect. Was there anything else that you guys like to add or share?
Can't resist talking about when we came to Brad's fire department.
Okay.
Because we talked a little bit today about people that are uneasy about getting help and all the stuff that goes with that. Well, I love it when we do these little trainings at fire departments, because we show up and just as Brad said, these guys are all sitting there like, this is another fucking training that we're gonna have to go through, and I know who we are. So I love that minute where we can see that we actually kind of got the room.
Right.
I think the most important thing I can relate about our program is we are real people. We are absolutely authentic. I am speaking much more professionally right now than I sometimes do in the program.
Yeah.
Because it's important to us to be able to relate to people,
Right.
Where they're at.
And I think it's huge for people who, veterans, uniform, law enforcement, firefighters, when they go into a program like this, to not feel like a number or a cattle that they're just pushing through. Like the VA just pushes through numbers to get quotas, but that's what it feels like. It seems like your program is more because you guys believe in what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You love to see, it's got to be so fulfilling to watch a group of 12 guys or girls go through and come in, like you said, their faces down, their hearts broken, watch them spend 3 weeks healing and learning and growing, and then send them back off into the world with a backpack full of tools to conquer life and live again.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
This is the best job I ever. I probably should have said that in my intro, but this is the best job I've ever had, and I've been in behavioral health or mental health for 12 years.
Yeah.
I've mostly worked with the real severe mental illness population, paranoid schizophrenia, that kind of thing, and that is very important work.
Yeah.
But for me personally, you don't see as much progress, when you're working with that population, with the uniformed service people. I see progress inside of a day, at least just in terms of making people feel comfortable. That's something that's been impossible for me to do previously in my career. It's there's nothing I could say to make this poor guy comfortable. But once we bring our guys over to the program and start relating to them as human beings, some of the barriers start to drop. And then as we talked about, these people get better. They learn the skills. They start to believe that it's possible to get better, and I can see it. And that turns out for me that's an important part. That's an important thing in my career is it turns out I do need to see that what I'm doing makes a difference.
We all need purpose.
Yeah.
That's what the driving force behind living a meaningful and happy and contented, joyful life is being fulfilled in what you do.
Yeah.
And without being emotionally intelligent, I don't think you can.
That's it.
Well, I just want to thank you guys again for being on the show. You had a little bit of a drive to get here this morning, and it's awesome that you wanted to share. I know Brad had mentioned before he came on that he was kind of hesitant. I think we all, it gets easier the more vulnerable. We did a podcast with Chris, talked about vulnerability, and the more vulnerable you are, the easier it becomes, and the more you realize it's not only helpful for yourself to do it, but it's helpful for others. And Brad took a big step to come here and kind of share some of his stuff because he changed his life, and he wants to share that with other people that are interested in changing theirs. And I think it was awesome that you said the look on someone's face when they realize that they can actually give or be given tools to make change in their life is huge. So we'll wrap up this podcast, and again, the Brattleboro Retreat, ask for the Uniform Services Program, 1-800-RETREAT. Get on the phone with Mike here or Dave, and take some steps and start seeing some real changes in your life. And Thanks for watching or listening to the podcast Outside the Wire. We'll see you next time.
Mayhem, this is Bravo 67 QRF. We are moving to contact exit gate 2. We are Oscar Mike.